My lazy coworker demanded I do his work because I was better at it anyway. When I refused, he took credit for my project and smirked. It's not like they'll believe you over me. The next morning, he walked into a meeting and froze as I played the security footage of me doing everything. His face went pale as the boss stood up and said, "Pack your things." Alright, here's what happened. I work in a mid-sized tech company in Chicago. Decent pay, alright benefits, but the office politics? Brutal. There are the overworked ones, the slackers, the ones who take credit for everything, and then there's Derek, the worst kind of coworker. Derek had been with the company longer than me, but that didn't mean he was good at his job. If anything, he had mastered the art of doing nothing while making it seem like he was always busy. He knew how to schmooze, how to delegate work to others while looking important, and most of all, he knew how to take credit for things he didn't do. For months, I had been covering for him, sometimes willingly, sometimes because he just dumped things on me at the last minute. It started small. A report here, a spreadsheet there. He'd come over, all casual, and say something like, "Hey man, you're better at this than me anyway. Mind handling it?" At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe he was just bad with numbers, or maybe I really was faster at writing up reports. But then it escalated. Soon, entire projects landed on my desk while Derek just sat around, chatting with managers, making it look like he was some kind of hardworking genius. I tried confronting him once. His response? "Dude, chill. It's a team effort. Besides, who do you think they'll believe?" That should have been my cue to put him in his place right then and there. But I didn't. I just swallowed my frustration and kept working. Until this project happened. We had a huge presentation coming up, a game changer for the company. If we landed this client, we were looking at millions in revenue. Our boss, Mr. Reynolds, put both of us on it and told us to work together. Translation: I do the work, Derek takes the credit. This time, though, I was done. I told Derek straight up, "I'm not doing this alone. If we're both on it, we're both putting in the work." He just laughed. That smug, arrogant smirk that made my blood boil. "Dude, relax. You're better at this anyway. It makes sense for you to do it." I wasn't having it. "Then explain why your name is on the project?" Derek rolled his eyes. "Because we're a team." I wanted to strangle him. I went to Reynolds, explained the situation, and asked to be reassigned. Reynolds just shrugged and said, "You two can work it out. Derek's been here a while, I'm sure he'll do his share." I knew right then and there, I was on my own. Fine. That's how he wanted to play it. Game on. Derek, of course, did nothing. Every day, I asked if he had made progress. He'd make excuses. "Oh, I was caught up in another meeting. I'll handle it tomorrow." Yeah, I'm on it." He was never on it. I stayed late, working until 2 a.m., while Derek strolled out at 5 p.m. without a care in the world. I pulled data, ran numbers, built spreadsheets, crafted the entire presentation from scratch. The deadline got closer, and I realized something. Derek had no idea what was even in the slides. At that point, I wasn't even mad. I was just waiting to see how far he'd take it. Then, the night before the presentation, Derek sends me a text. "Hey man, just send me the slides when you're done. I'll look over them in the morning." He wasn't even pretending to help anymore. That's when I made a choice. I didn't send him the slides. I walked into the conference room early, nervous but ready. The slides were saved on my laptop. I was about to connect it to the screen when I heard a familiar voice. "All right, let's get started." I turned and saw Derek, standing at the front of the room. And behind him? My slides. He had stolen my work. I was too stunned to speak. He had somehow gotten into my files, probably used a shared drive or some other sneaky trick, and now he was presenting my work like it was his own. I locked eyes with him. He smirked. That same, smug, arrogant smirk. I clenched my fists under the table. I could have spoken up right there. I could have shouted, "That's my work!" But I didn't. Because I had something better. See, Derek thought he was clever. He thought he had outplayed me. But what he didn't know was that I had been documenting everything. Every late night? Caught on security cameras. Every edit to the project? Time-stamped and emailed to myself. Every file? Saved with logs showing who worked on them. I wasn't just going to tell them he stole my work. I was going to show them. So I sat back. I watched as Derek stumbled through the slides, struggling to explain the numbers, fumbling the details, trying to improvise his way through my research. Reynolds narrowed his eyes. He wasn't stupid, he could tell something was off. Then, at the end, Derek turned to the room and said, "And that's how I put this all together." I smiled. My turn. I reached into my bag, pulled out a USB drive, and stood up. "Actually, sir," I said, looking at Reynolds, "I think you'll want to see this." Derek's face twitched. I plugged the USB into the conference room computer and pulled up the security footage. On the screen, the entire room watched me, sitting at my desk for hours, typing, running numbers, creating slides. Derek? Either not there or sitting around doing nothing. Then I pulled up the file history. Every edit, every save, done by me. Silence. Derek turned white. Reynolds leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said slowly, looking at Derek. "Looks like we need to have a conversation." Derek swallowed hard. I just crossed my arms and waited. And that's when I knew he was done. Derek was frozen. The room was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. Mr. Reynolds drummed his fingers on the table, eyes locked onto Derek like a lion about to pounce. I didn't sit back down. I just stood there, arms crossed, watching the panic creep over Derek's face. He opened his mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to lie, who knows. But before he could get a word out, Mr. Reynolds spoke. "Derek. My office. Now." Derek swallowed hard. He hesitated, like a kid who knew he was about to be grounded but still hoping for a way out. Then he turned and walked out. Mr. Reynolds glanced at me. "Stay here." And just like that, they were gone. The door closed behind them, but through the glass walls, I could see the argument starting in Reynolds' office. Derek's arms were moving, wildly. He was pleading, pointing toward the conference room. Probably trying to spin some desperate lie. I could only imagine what was being said. Meanwhile, the rest of the team just sat there, looking at me. Some exchanged glances, a few whispered. But no one said anything out loud. Then, the door slammed open. Derek stormed out, his face red, his fists clenched. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. He just grabbed his stuff from his desk, shoved it into his bag, and walked straight for the elevator. I could feel every eye in the office on him. And that's when I knew I had won. At least I thought I had. That should have been the end of it. Derek had been exposed, humiliated, and walked out in disgrace. But this wasn't just some lazy coworker getting caught slacking off. This was Derek. And he wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, I came into the office feeling good. Maybe even a little too good. My work had spoken for itself, and Derek had been put in his place. But the second I sat down at my desk, something felt off. People were staring at me. Not in the usual way, this was different. Whispering. Side eyes. Even my closest coworker, Nate, leaned over and muttered, "Dude, have you checked your email?" I frowned, opened my laptop, and clicked into my inbox. And there it was. An email. From Derek. Sent to the entire office. I clicked it open. Subject: the truth about what happened yesterday. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a moment to clear the air about what happened. Some of you saw the footage in the meeting, and I won't deny that my coworker worked hard on the project. But what you didn't see was how he had been sabotaging me for weeks. I tried to contribute, but every time I made a suggestion, he shut me down. I asked to collaborate, but he refused to share files with me until the last minute, making sure I had no time to prepare. Then he set me up to fail in front of the entire leadership team. It was a smart move. And I'll admit, I didn't see it coming. But don't think for a second that this was as clear-cut as he made it seem. Just think about it. Who benefits the most from all of this? Derek. I stared at the screen. No way. No way. I turned my chair and looked around. People weren't whispering anymore. Some were flat out glaring at me. A few even looked sympathetic toward Derek. Dude. Nate shook his head. People are actually buying this crap. I clenched my jaw. Of course they were. Derek wasn't just lazy, he was smart. He knew exactly how to spin a story, how to make himself the victim, how to plant just enough doubt to make people second-guess everything. I had expected him to slink away and disappear. Instead, he was fighting back. And I wasn't about to let him win. By lunchtime, the office was split. Some people saw through Derek's nonsense. They knew his reputation. They had worked with him before. But others? They weren't so sure. I mean, he does have a point. I overheard someone say. Why wouldn't he have helped if they were supposed to be a team? Another whispered. What if he really did set him up? I wanted to scream. Instead, I did what I always did. I got to work. If Derek wanted to play dirty, fine. I wasn't going to stoop to his level, but I sure as hell wasn't going to let him rewrite history. I went straight to Mr. Reynolds. "We need to talk." Reynolds looked exhausted. He had clearly been dealing with Derek's fallout all morning. "I know why you're here," he said, rubbing his temples. "Derek's email." I nodded. "People are actually believing it." Reynolds sighed. "Some are, yeah?" I leaned forward. "We have the security footage. The file history. You know the truth. You were in that meeting." Reynolds hesitated. And that's when I realized he wasn't sure what to do. "Look, I get it," he said finally. "But I can't just make a decision based on what I know. This has turned into an HR issue now. We have to do this by the book." I froze. HR. That meant meetings. That meant investigations. That meant weeks, possibly months, of this dragging on while Derek played the victim. I clenched my fists. "So what now?" Reynolds looked at me, then at his computer. He tapped his fingers on his desk for a moment, deep in thought. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "Now? We wait. Wait. Wait for what?" Derek had already struck back. He wasn't waiting, he was attacking. And if I sat back and let this unfold on HR's timeline, I might lose. And there was no way in hell I was letting that happen. This wasn't just about proving I did the work anymore. This was a war. And I was about to end it. Waiting wasn't an option. Derek was out there, spinning his story, getting people on his side, and if I sat back and let HR handle it, who knows how long it would take. By the time they reached a conclusion, half the office might believe I was the villain. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I did something reckless. I responded. I went back to my desk, opened a new email, and hit reply all. Subject, setting the record straight. Hey everyone, I saw Derek's email, and I understand that hearing two different sides of the story can be confusing. So, instead of arguing, I'll just lay out the facts. Here's the security footage that shows who worked late nights. Here's the edit history from our shared files. Here are the timestamps of when everything was actually done. No opinions. No accusations. Just cold, hard facts. Make up your own minds. Me, I attached everything, the video clips, the screenshots, even a few emails where I had begged Derek to contribute and got nothing but excuses. Then I hit send. I sat back, heart pounding. And then? All hell broke loose. The second my email went out, the office exploded. Some people instantly saw the truth. Holy crap. Derek was lying. This is brutal. Man really tried to gaslight an entire company. But others? They weren't as quick to admit they had been fooled. Okay, but does this really prove he didn't try to include Derek? Maybe he set him up from the start. Why didn't he just share everything sooner? It was insane. I had given them everything, and some people still wanted to believe Derek. That's when I realized, this wasn't about proof anymore. This was about perception. Derek wasn't just fighting to keep his reputation. He was fighting to destroy mine. And he wasn't done yet. An hour later my phone buzzed. New email. I already knew who it was from. I opened it. Subject, my final thoughts. I see that my former coworker has decided to escalate things. That's fine. But before everyone makes up their minds, I just want to leave you with one question. If he was really so innocent, why did I just have a meeting with HR? Derek, I felt my blood go cold. I looked up. People were staring at me again. Not with sympathy. Not with anger. With suspicion. Derek had played his best card yet. He made it look like I was the one being investigated. And worse? He wasn't entirely wrong. 15 minutes later, I got an email from HR. Subject, meeting request. Hi, my name. We'd like to set up a meeting to discuss recent events in the office. Please come by at 3 p.m. today. HR, I closed my laptop hard. Derek had gotten to them first. And now? I was about to walk into his battlefield. I stepped into HR's office at exactly 3 p.m. The room was too quiet, and sitting across from me was Lisa, head of HR. She had the kind of polite but emotionless face that let you know nothing you said was going to change her mind. So, she started, folding her hands. We've had some concerning reports. I didn't react. From Derek. She didn't confirm or deny it. From multiple people. I felt my stomach drop. Derek had rallied supporters. Of course he had. He knew exactly who to whisper to, who would buy his story, who was already biased against me. And now? HR was looking at me like I was the problem. Lisa pulled out a folder. We need to discuss claims that you created a hostile work environment. I almost laughed. Are you serious? She slid a piece of paper across the table. An official complaint. Signed by Derek. And not just him. 2 other names were on it. People I barely even spoke to. The accusations? That I had been controlling, manipulative, and had made it impossible for Derek to do his job. That I had sabotaged him and created a toxic environment. It was all lies. But to HR? It was a real complaint. Which meant I was now under investigation. I had won the battle. But Derek? He had just turned the entire war against me. I stared at the complaint, heart pounding. Derek's name was there, obviously. But the other 2? Paul and Sandra. Paul was one of those guys who always kept his head down, never got involved in drama. I barely even talked to him. Sandra was worse, she was friendly, but she was also Derek's drinking buddy outside of work. This wasn't just a complaint. This was a setup. Lisa, the HR rep, watched me carefully. I understand this might be upsetting. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Upsetting? You're telling me I'm being investigated for creating a toxic work environment because I did my job while Derek slacked off? She sighed. We need to take every complaint seriously. And in fairness, you did escalate things with that email. I clenched my fists. Because he sent a company-wide email first. Lying about me. Lisa didn't react. She just flipped through the complaint. Regardless, there are multiple people saying that you deliberately withheld information from Derek, that you set him up to fail, and that your behavior has made the workplace hostile. My jaw tightened. You saw the evidence. The timestamps. The security footage. How does any of this make sense? She folded her hands. HR doesn't make decisions based on emotions. We look at patterns, and right now, we have a situation where multiple employees have raised concerns. Patterns? Derek had just fabricated a pattern and now they were treating it like fact. I leaned forward. Let me ask you this. Did you get any complaints about me before today? Silence. Lisa didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. Derek was desperate, and this was his last, pathetic move. I should have let it go. I should have kept calm. But I was done playing nice. I walked out of HR's office with one goal, find Derek. The moment I stepped onto the floor, I saw him. Sitting at my desk. My desk. Just casually leaning back in my chair, chatting with Sandra like he hadn't just tried to ruin my career. I didn't think. I just acted. Get up. His eyes flicked up at me, and I saw it, that smirk. Hey, buddy. He said, tone light like we were friends. Tough meeting? I slammed my hands on the desk. I said, get up. A few people turned to look. Conversation stopped. Derek didn't move. Instead, he leaned forward, voice low. You should be careful, man. People are starting to say you have anger issues. I laughed, but it wasn't funny. You're unbelievable. Sandra stood up. Hey, let's just all. I cut her off. Save it. I'm not here to argue with you. Then I looked back at Derek. You and I both know you're lying. He shrugged, still pretending to be relaxed. That's a strong accusation. I pulled out my phone. So let's test it. I tapped the screen and played a recording. Derek's voice came through, clear as day. Come on, man. You're better at this anyway. It's not like they'll believe you over me. His face dropped. I turned the volume up. The whole office could hear it. You should be careful, man. People are starting to say you have anger issues. Dead silence. I watched the color drain from Derek's face. Sandra looked between us, confused. Paul had his mouth slightly open. The people who had been on the fence? They weren't anymore. Derek tried to grab at some last shred of control. Dude, what? Are you recording me now? That's against company policy. I smiled. Funny, HR didn't seem to mention that when they were investigating me. Lisa appeared in the doorway of her office, eyes locked onto the scene. She had heard everything. Then, something unexpected happened. Paul, the guy who had signed the complaint against me, stood up. He looked at me, then at Derek, and then back at Lisa. I want to retract my statement. Sandra's face twisted. Paul, I thought we were just supporting Derek. I didn't know it was like this. Sandra turned red. Oh, so now you're switching sides? Paul nodded. Yeah. Because I don't like being played. Lisa sighed. All right. Everyone back to work. Derek, my office. Now. Derek didn't move. Lisa's voice sharpened. Now. And just like that, he stood up and walked away. Derek didn't come back to his desk that afternoon. An hour later, an email went out from HR subject, employee departure notice. Derek, last name, is no longer with the company. We thank him for his contributions and wish him well in his future endeavors. I read it twice. It was over. I should have felt relieved. Maybe even vindicated. But honestly, I just felt tired. Sandra wouldn't even look at me. A few people muttered apologies, but most just went back to work, pretending nothing had happened. Nate walked over and clapped me on the back. Dude! That was brutal. I let out a slow breath. Yeah. Feel good? I thought about it. The stress. The rage. The nights spent proving myself. I shook my head. Not really. Because in the end Derek was gone, but the damage he did? That would take a long time to fix. A few weeks later, things finally settled down. HR ruled in my favor. They cleared me of everything. Reynolds gave me the promotion Derek had wanted. But something had changed. I learned that the workplace isn't just about who works the hardest. It's about who controls the story. And for a while Derek almost won. The worst part? If I hadn't recorded him, he might have gotten away with it. That's what sticks with me. Not that I won. But that I almost lost. And next time? I won't wait until I'm backed into a corner to fight back.